Here's the late, great Carl Sagan. He was kind of one of the first public personas of science. He wrote Contact, which is also made into a movie. He said science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. So if we look at science, even Einstein, who is often identified as a deist or kind of agnostic, thinks that we can draw a lot of inspiration from science, even spiritual inspiration. Stephen Hawking, who just passed away a few years ago, took a slightly different view. He says, what I have done is to show that it is possible for the way the universe began to be determined by the laws of science. In that case, it would not be necessary to appeal to God to decide how the universe began. This doesn't prove that there is no God, only that God is not necessary, right? So obviously different opinions in the relationship between science and religion. So let's talk about the first major argument for God's existence, which is the teleological argument. The most famous instantiation of that comes from William Paley. Then we'll briefly talk about the cosmological argument and then finish up with the ontological argument before saying a few things about what we call reformed epistemology. Okay, so right, we'll look at three theoretical categories of argument and then two non-standard argument types, one for and one against God's existence. So as we said, there's plenty of different arguments for and against God's existence. All right, so if we're talking about the more popular theoretical arguments, typically we categorize them by the types of premises they use. So a posteriori arguments are the kinds of arguments we use that derive from observation and experience, okay? And that's gonna be the cosmological argument. And by cosmos, we mean universe. And this is an argument from effect to cause and denial of an infinite regress. I'm sure you've heard of a version of the cosmological argument that since the universe began, something had to cause it, and that something is God. At its most basic level is the cosmological argument. These arguments try to show that from the fact that the universe exists, something must cause it, and God is that cause. So God exists. We also have the teleological argument, which is another a posteriori argument, and maybe you've heard of a form of this as well. Teleos means function, and this is usually an argument from analogy. And if you've heard of intelligent design, it usually is an argument that tries to make God's existence likely from the observed design of the universe. So typically you hear people make arguments like, if we look at the complexity of the human body, the human brain, the human eye, processes in nature, the complexity of the universe, somebody or something had to make it, right? There had to be a maker, just like we would look at a watch and say, this had to be made by someone or something. So the inference is that God is the cause of that design.